My guest today is Jérôme Coupez, founder and CEO of Prodigy Agency, a leading esports representation, management, and marketing agency. Zywoo, Scream, Mixwell are just some of the biggest names of the esport world represented by Prodigy. Tune in to get first-hand insights from the man who stands behind all of this. Jérôme will take you through his fascinating story, share the secrets of how he chooses and signs the best talent. And his experience in Asian markets shows how esport differs in different regions. You'll learn why internet cafes are still a thing there and why mobile gaming thrives. If you're looking for a true esport expert, you found him. I'm Katarzyna Dąbrowska, and it's simple, you know? My guest today is Jérôme Coupez. He is the founder of Prodigy. And what exactly does that mean? Hi, Jérôme. How are you today?
Hi, Katarzyna. I'm very good, and you?
Good. So tell me about Prodigy. You founded Prodigy. What exactly is it? What does it do? What are you guys doing on the market?
Yeah, sure. So I founded Prodigy Agency 2 years ago. We are a leading esports representation agency. It means that we represent and we take care of some of the best players around the world. Basically, we are the agent of the Cristiano Ronaldo or Lionel Messi of esports. So we take care of them from all angles, from career management, contracts, marketing, individual sponsors, sport psychologists, basically everything they could need or want.
Okay, so it really is in some way very comparable to traditional sport.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's pretty new in esports because it's still a young and growing industry, but it's very needed for the players nowadays because they are real athletes. They are training every day. They are going to competitions. They are earning more and more monies. So that's why it's needed now in esports for them to be represented, to manage all the negotiation stuff and so on, so that they can focus on the game, which is the most important thing from them.
Yeah. How did it happen that you started this agency?
So a little bit of background is that I used to be let's say, a pro player myself 15 years ago when I was really young, but it was another esport at the time. We were not even getting paid or really low salary. We were happy to travel around let's say, France and Europe, going to events. But then it was not a sustainable industry at the time. So I decided to focus on studies, then work. And I've been working in motorsports, in Formula One, in many things on the marketing business side. But then I came back into esports when esports started to grow as an industry 5 years ago, approximately. And I started to work with brands, with sports clubs, with esports teams. And then I had a few of the best players in the world contacted me to help them working on developing their brand, their image, negotiating the contract with their teams, because it was pretty new at the time. And this is how I started working with some players.
Okay. And you mentioned that you yourself were a pro player. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it was a long time ago. When I say pro, it's because I had contracts, right? But it was nothing like nowadays. Like I said, sometimes we were getting paid 100 euros per month or even less. And we were happy about that because we were traveling, going to land with friends.
Well, I think that for a lot of people, just hearing the fact that people were doing this 15 years ago and earning any kind of money would be surprising.
Yeah, potentially. It was mainly based on the cash prize we were winning at the events, local events in France and so on. But I was not one of the best players in the world. I was just playing with friends, and we did some couple of good events, especially in France. We earned some monies and prizes from brands, and that's all.
What games were you playing?
Yeah, so I was playing on Counter-Strike. I think
Okay.
for the ones that know Prodigy Agency, I don't think it will be a surprise because this is where we started. The first players that we represented were basically the biggest CSGO players in the world.
Yeah, you guys seem to have a lot of CSGO players.
Yeah, that was how we started. Like I said, this is our main market, And this is where we are by far the leaders because, like I said, I used to be a player on Counter-Strike. I've been playing Counter-Strike Global Offensive myself a lot, so it makes sense.
At what point did you realize that esport was changing into something a lot more, let's say, serious?
I think, like I said, 5 years ago, esports started to grow as a whole industry from all angles, like the viewership of the events, even the gaming community, the stream, and so on. It was really starting to pop off. More and more fans, more and more audience for the esports events, viewership. Then the players started to get paid more and more because the esports teams and organizations were growing, finding new sponsorship to attract, let's say, the millennials and so on. So it was the whole esports ecosystem was starting to grow because of the young generations, right? They don't really watch TVs. They start to watch stream. They want to watch their best, let's say, the best players on the games they play. So it started to grow like that.
What kind of players do you want to work with? Like, what when you want to sign a new player for the agency, what do you look for?
Nowadays, we have a very strong position, so we are very careful about the players we sign. Our main focus with Prodigy is to sign either the very best players in the world on their games or very young and talented players that we know that can become some of the best players in the world with our support and experience. That's the first thing. So we have a mix of old or not old players, but some of the very best that everyone knows. But we also have very young talents that probably not a lot of people knows about on different games that we really think and know that they are very talented. And also, we want to work with players that share the same value and mindset that we have, which is based on trust, having a good relationship, being, how to say that, we don't really want to work with divas nowadays. Because what we do is that we support the players from all angles on a daily basis with a very family-centric mindset. So we really like to work with players that are building this relationship with Prodigy and all the employees we have, because it's important for us to be able to support them on their career, on their marketing, on their image, on their PR and everything. So it's really important for me when we sign a player that we are sure that the player share the same vision, that he will always respect not only me as the CEO, as the agent, but also the social media manager that will work with him on a daily basis, the content manager and so on. I want everyone to have a really good relationship. That's important for us. And that's all we are working the best. So even for the players, it's more efficient.
Okay. You mentioned young and talented players, which makes me think a little bit of how in traditional sports you have scouts. You have scouts that go out into the games at in high school or at university to watch the best players. Does something like this happen in esport as well?
Yeah. Actually, for example, on CSGO, I'm doing this work myself a lot, even on Valorant, because I know the game perfectly. I used to be a player myself. I know what is needed for a player to be a potential professional player, right? The good thing in esports is that it's probably way easier than in traditional sport to scout players, right? You can watch everything online. You can watch the stats, the datas. Even for very young players playing minor league on different games, you can find the data on specific platforms, specific championships, and so on.
Like you have to travel on the other side of the world to watch someone play.
Yeah, exactly. To scout the young talents, everything is online in esports right now. The players in esports are starting to travel to big events only when they are joining at least decent or very good teams. So we already know about them. If you want to scout them before they are getting noticed, then you have to check online on the local leagues, local championships on platforms like, I don't know, Faceit, ACA, this kind of platform for CSGO. But it's really easier to scout them. But the thing is that also a player can be very, very good mechanically. He can have tons of skills on the server, but to become professional in esports, there are many factors outside the pure skill of the players, right? They need to have the right mindset. They need to be smart. They need to be hardworking. And this kind of thing you can't really see it on the stats. So then usually all we do it is that we scout a player on the stats, we watch a few demos, replays, and then if we think that he potentially has the talent to become professional, then we start discussing with those players. We start having meetings, call with them, their families, their parents, to understand the situation, and the vision, which kind of goals they have. If they are really young, are they looking to continue the studies? Because that's something that is really important for me. For example, when we sign the players that is 15, 16, I really want to push for them to finish studies, at least at a very minimum level, that they can come back later on studies and so on, because it's so important to carry in esports. It's like in sport, it can be really short, and you need to anticipate that.
What is it that you see in a player that makes you say, yes, I want to sign that player?
It depends on the games, I would say. For example, I'm a specialist on FPS games like CSGO, Valorant, because I've been playing the games, I'm watching everything I can. And like I said, you can quickly see if a player is talented by the stats on different website leagues. You can quickly see it. Then you can review demos and see which kind of play style he's playing. And you can, when you're an expert of the game, you can really quickly see if a player is talented at the game, right? And then after that, like I said, it's mainly a discussion with them. I contact the player. They are usually very happy that Prodigy or myself are interested to discuss with them. And then it's a discussion about, like I said, the mindset, their vision, their goals, how do they see themselves. And I really want to feel that they are potentially professional enough to become a really good player and to evolve like you are supposed to evolve to become a pro. So it's mainly the feeling, I would say. There is no specific criteria to determine if a player will become pro or very good.
It's like a vibe.
Exactly, it's a vibe. You know, you have the stats, so you already know when you're going to a call with him that he's good at the game. There is no doubt about that. He's good, he's talented, he has skill. But then you want to feel that there is a connection with the player, that you feel that you can bring him to the top because he will do everything needed for that and trust you in that. And that's mainly a feeling.
Is there anything that would make you absolutely never sign a player, even if he's really, really good or if she's really, really good? You're like, nah, no way.
Yeah, I already did it, to be honest. Some of the very best players in the world. It's like I said, I don't think you have some players that they are some kind of divas, or you know that they have a really strong character, which can be good in some ways. But when it's like someone who is toxic with his teammate, with the community, on his communication, that can quickly become a nightmare to work with. I really like to work with players that have a strong character, right? But that respect the community, their teammates. They just want to be the best. They want to win, though, so sometimes they are a bit hard on themselves, on the team, because they want to win. I can accept that because they are athletes. But I really don't want to work with players that don't respect the community, that are toxic. This is not something I want to work on a daily basis, and I don't want my employees to feel that kind of toxicity also. So I already did it, and I will do it again and again. I have no regrets to not represent a player that is not fitting or valued.
Have you ever had a situation where you did have, let's say someone who is toxic, and you said to them, hey, listen, we can't do this with you anymore. But then they changed. They were like, okay, I fucked up. I get it. I can't be like this. And they actually really worked on this and got better, or this hasn't happened?
Well, it happened once or twice. I have some few examples in mind. A player that was really difficult with to work with, and we really tried our best to make him change, make him understand that even for his career, it was important to get better in many angles, right? And yeah, he did. Like he really improved in many areas, in his communications, in many things. But then it happened again, and then I had to stop the relationship. We all work as the agent, the agency, the representative of the players is to educate them, because usually in esports they're really young. But sometimes you do your best and it's just not working because the player don't really want it. So yeah, it happened already. But I also have some cases of players that were really young, not toxic, but they were known for not being the best teammate in the teams and on communication. And then we make them understand that it's really important for them, for their image, for their career, if they want to be successful on the long term. It's not because you are the best today that you can be toxic with everyone, because maybe in 6 months or 1 year you will not be that good anymore and you will need to jump back. But then the people, they will not give you their hands to you because you were not the best teammate, right? So we have a few players that were, I would not say they were the worst player in the world, because that's not true. We never signed these kind of players, but they had probably up and downs in their behavior with the community, and we made them understand that it's really important to be a good person on the server as a player, but also outside of it. And yeah, I'm really happy with what we have done with some of those players that are really, really good right now, and they are performing at their best, especially because players in esports are really young usually.
Yeah, that I was thinking about it, that they start usually quite young. What is the average age of players starting out?
It depends on the games, but nowadays I would say that most of the players are starting very, very young, like 13, 14, 15, to try to play as much as they can, trying to potentially become professional. And then on Fortnite, for example, the players are professional when they are very young, like 15, 16. On other games like League of Legends, CSGO, Valorant, it's more 18, 19, 20. That's the age where you have the most of the newcomers in the pro scene, right? But they're still super young. When you are only 18 or 19, you are still not a child, but almost. And you have to play with some experienced players.
Do you see players burning out often? Like they've been playing for a couple of years and then they've just had enough and they move on to other things? Or do a lot of them that make it tend to stay around for quite some time?
It's a very sensitive topic right now in esports. It's growing because on some games like Counter-Strike, for example, the scheduling is pretty crazy. The players are playing a lot. In 2019, they were traveling a lot. Like, I think some of the teams traveled more than 30 weeks in 2019, which is
Wow.
very, very, very.
Did you say 30 or 13?
30.
30. Okay, that's a lot of travel.
Yeah, so it's basically a travel every 2 weeks or even more, going to China, from China to Europe, to the US, to coming back to Europe and so on for big events. So it's a bit crazy. And this year with the COVID, obviously, we didn't have that much events, but then they had to play even more online to compensate that. And they were playing important events every weeks. They had an official match every 2, 3, 4 days. It was crazy. And we had a lot of players on CSGO that had basically burnout, either issues or symptoms, let's say this way. They were really, and they are really tired. So even inside Prodigy Agency, we had a lot of players that are concerned from that. They are feeling really tired. Sometimes they are not really happy to play the game anymore, and we need to support them the best we can. We need to provide the support for them to bounce back and take care of themselves, because it's a real topic right now in esports.
Yeah. I was just going to ask, what do you do when the player's burnt out? Like, what is the course of action that you take?
Yeah, I mean, we try to act way before that, because if a player is really burning out, and that's really complicated to manage, right? But we try to act before, providing sport psychologists, discussing with the teams of the players, trying to provide the best support we can, from mental coach, sport psychologist, nutritionist, analyzing their sleep patterns and schedule, because we know that the players in esports are athletes nowadays, but some of them still have very bad habits, right? They are not sleeping that much. They are playing late. They are not eating as good as we can imagine from athletes when they are home. And this is a lot of factors that can affect the health of the players, right? Especially when you play that much. So we really try to provide a holistic approach to our players, and working in coordination with their teams to provide all the support they could need, and having the right people to talk to, analyzing their daily schedule, what they do outside the game, and so on, to avoid this burnout and playing too much.
Yeah.
And it's a topic that we need to keep improving. So we are working a lot, and I'm working a lot on that with Prodigy. We will soon announce a partnership with a mental health, wellness, and performance company that is working in sport and esports, that we will provide to our players the much we can to anticipate this issue. Because, like I said, when you act, when the player is already feeling like really tired, almost burnout, it's really complicated. So I really want us, as the agency of those players, to anticipate that and work since the very beginning of the career. Because when you are 17, 18, you want to play as much as you can. You are not feeling burnout, right? This is more the players that are a little bit more advanced in their career. But if we anticipate that, we provide them the right support since the beginning of the career, then we can anticipate this kind of issue and work with them since the beginning.
Yeah, you can like do some kind of preventative measures to make sure that they're staying healthy and things like this. Would I be right to assume that you are representing mainly, like, I don't know how to call them, like single players, or do you also represent whole teams?
We represent the players. We have some players playing on the same team, right? But we represent individuals mainly, and we have a very individualized approach, which means that the way we work with a player would maybe not be efficient with another player because he has different needs, different wants. So everything we do is very personalized to each players, each personalities, and so on. But we don't represent teams as per organizations, for example.
Yeah.
But it happens that we have different players from one team represented by Prodigy.
Okay, so if we were to translate it into like traditional sport, you might be representing Michael Jordan, but you might not necessarily be representing, I don't know, Scottie Pippen.
Yeah, exactly. We might represent both or not. It's just, depends on the players we represent. But it can happen that we have different players on the same team, yeah.
And do you have some rules about what the player can and can't do, or maybe less rules, maybe even how they take care of themselves, like for example that they have to train, or is that something that's generally left to the team managers?
That's something that is left to the teams, but we are really careful about that. And we, like I said, the players are young, and our role is to educate them. So this is also a role to work with them, trying to have good habits, because we want their career to be long, right? I want my players to have a sustainable career. I want them to have sustainable revenue for the future and so on. So I need them to have good habits since the beginning. So we are working on it with them. That's usually the teams that are, let's say, the ones that apply the process, control everything. They can fine the players. It's already happened, like a player getting fined because he didn't respect the contract from different angles, right? Like training not enough, or not going to the gym during the boot camps, this kind of thing. But our role is to make sure that the player is doing everything he should be doing to be the best version of himself.
Okay. Do you think that the image of what a gamer is has changed over the last few years?
I think it has, because especially, let's say, with the COVID, I think that esports was the only sport for a few months to happen, I would say. And even Formula One drivers like Charles Leclerc or Lando Norris started to stream, doing competition online on Formula One, the game. And I think that the general public understood that the esports players, they are not only gamers eating junk food on their garage and playing games all day long. They are also athletes. They are winning. They are going to big tournaments when you don't have the COVID before. And I hope in 2021 you have some really big events with big crowd. They are playing on stage. They are training a lot. They are going to the gym. They are real athletes. And I think this image is evolving step by step. You still have some people that have no clue about what it is to be a pro player nowadays. They don't understand the sacrifice and all the hard work that you need to put. It's not only random people going to play every day video games that will become a pro player. That's not the case, right? So I think it's evolving step by step, but there are still a lot to do in that regards.
I wanted to ask this earlier, but I forgot. When we're talking about players, they're so young, you generally have to deal with their parents as well. When you want to sign a new player, is there ever resistance from their parents because maybe they don't understand what's happening and they don't understand the industry?
Before signing a player, except when he's already an established one, he's 25, he has been traveling the world a lot and he wants to sign with us, we don't need to talk with the parent anymore, right? But when we sign a young player, it can be 15, 16, or even 19, 20, but he's pretty new in esports, we always take care of discussing with his family, because it's really important that they understand what we do, why we are doing what we are doing, and why it is needed for the player to be represented and supported and so on. And we never sign a player that is under 18, for example, without the approval of the parents and having different calls with them, because we need to explain what we do. We need to explain why. We need to educate the parents also on why it's important to have a lawyer working on the contract before signing, to avoid any blocking issues, for example. But yeah, it's a relationship that we need to build with the player, but also with the family of the player. And it's really important. And we want the family to be involved in that relationship because they are the first point of contact of the player. They are the ones that usually support the player firsthand. And we need to all work together to support the player in his career and from all angles. And usually the parents, they don't know anything about esports. They don't know anything about sport, about managing the finance, because the esports players, they are earning more and more money, for example, and you need to anticipate that. So there are many, many topics that the players of those parents, the parents of those players, they are a bit lost, and it's really important for them to have a direct point of contact with us, because we need to work, let's say, all together in that, and that's mandatory for me. You can't support the player if you are not working with his direct family, advisors, and so on.
Okay. And do you have any parents, or well, maybe not you with your players in general, but are there parents who also become divas in esport?
It never happened to us, at least.
Really? Wow. I thought that for sure at least one.
At least with us, it never happened. I don't think the esports players are yet in the same category as, let's say, actors or football players in terms of revenue of exposure. It's not that yet. But no, it never happened to us. Usually the families are really, really supportive, especially nowadays. It was not the case a few years back, right? The parents usually were really cautious about it. And we needed to explain them why esports is growing, what is the potential for your son, for example, to become a pro player, what he will be able to earn. Nowadays, they understand it, and we just need to explain them why they need to be supported, protected. But no, we never had any relationship issue with any parents. Usually they are very lovely, and they really enjoy working with us because we are the expert, and they just ask any questions they can have and so on.
Okay. I want to switch gears for a second and talk to you a little bit about your experience working in Asia, because I was reading that you've had some experience working there. How does, or does it at all, how does the esport world or the industry, how is it different in Asia than in Europe, for example?
First of all, Asia is really divided. It's really exploded in terms of esports. If you take China, for me, China is not really part of Asia. China is China. It's very, very, very specific. Everything that happens in China is Chinese, right? So it's very specific. It's a specific market. You can compare to the rest of Asia. But I've been mainly working in Southeast Asia, for example, and it's very exploded. And the first comparison to Europe or the US is that most of the esports, like 80% of esports events, competitions, are on mobile, because the revenue are not that high compared to Europe. They don't really have the means to buy really expensive computers to play the last esports games. So they are mainly playing on mobiles because it's really easy to access the game, right?
Because everybody has a mobile phone, but not everybody has a desktop at home.
Exactly. And you can play some of the mobile games with a really average phone, I would say. It's not that consuming.
Mm-hmm.
So they are all playing on mobile all the time. The player base on mobile games is crazy in Asia compared to Europe. And so, yeah, as the player base is big, then you have competitions. Makes sense, because they want to be the best players. And the games that they play is really different from country to country. For example, in Indonesia, the biggest game by far is Mobile Legends. It's very similar to League of Legends, but on mobile. I think the player base is around 40 million.
That's a lot.
It's crazy. And then if you go into another country like Thailand, you have all the games. Of course, they play also Mobile Legends, but you have all the games that are not even getting played that much in Indonesia. And so you have competitions on these games in Thailand, like AOV. So it's really exploded. This is one very big specificity. From a country to another country in Asia, there are different games in esports, different competitions, different kind of games. So that's really, really specific. That's something that you don't really have in Europe. Like in Europe, you play, or in the US, you have League of Legends, you have Valorant, you have CSGO, Rocket League. It's all the same games, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also in Asia, at least before COVID, we had so many events. Like I've been working in Asia because I was the head of marketing of the biggest esports organizer in Asia and Southeast Asia. So I've been leading some of the biggest events around the world, but also in Asia and Southeast Asia. And we had events almost every 2 weeks in a different country in Southeast Asia.
Okay.
We did events in big malls with a lot of people, like 1, 2, 3, 5K people watching mobile events that is just done in a mall during the weekend, which is not the case in Europe, right? In Europe, you have really big events from time to time. So esports and gaming is really developed in Asia. Every time you are going to a mall, a shop, you have some esports activations, tournaments on different games. It's really crazy in Asia, actually.
Okay. There's another thing I wanted you to tell me a little bit about the Asian, I guess, community, that there's something else that's quite different, is that they still have internet cafes.
Yep, because the main difference, like we discussed, is that they can't really buy really good PC to play the game. So if they want to play a game like, I don't know, CSGO, Valorant, Overwatch, or the new games, then the cheapest way and the easiest way to do it is to go to a cyber cafe. Which is not the case in Europe or in the US anymore. Basically, the cyber coffee, they died a few years back, and now we are building some esports arena, esports lounge, with a cool branding to attract people. But usually we don't need it, right? Because we have the best connection available at home. We have the best PC, and we can play for fun, or we can play competitively from home easily, which is not really the case in Asia, right? Usually they don't have the best connection at home. They don't have a PC at all. So if they want to play, they have to go to cyber. This is why you can find a lot of cyber in Asia, and especially in Southeast Asia.
Do you think that it makes the community aspect of gaming different there?
I think that one of the differences is that the grassroots community in Asia is pretty strong. Like we are always trying to create tournaments for grassroots teams, like trying to grind to the top, but starting from the very beginning, amateur teams, going to cyber cafe, doing tournament locally, then having the best teams of each cyber playing against against each other, and so on. You have a lot of competition that way in Asia, and I think it allows to build a strong community on different games. But this is also specific because usually the games that you play at the cyber on PC, like Counter-Strike, Valorant, CSGO, the community is really, it's not that big compared to Europe because, like I said, in Asia, they mainly play mobile. So the community on PC games, except on Dota maybe, which is still pretty big in Asia, but the community is not that big. So you need this kind of grassroots tournaments because if not, then you only have a few online events. And it's also complicated in Asia because depending on the countries, if you need to play against a team which is in another country in Asia, then you can really, you cannot sometimes because of the ping, right? Because Asia is really wide. So if you want to play China against Singapore, for example, the ping will not be efficient.
Okay. I don't want to, I say this to everybody that I don't want to talk about this too much, but I do want to mention it. We've had a bit of a unique situation this year worldwide with the pandemic. And I'm curious, how did it impact your business?
I think we are part of the very lucky ones because esports and gaming is still running despite the COVID. Even if we don't have big events with big crowd anymore, we still have esports competitions. We still have the possibility for our players to stream, to produce content. And they are even more at home. Like I said, on CSGO, they were traveling too much. So it was really complicated to have access to our players to create content, to stream, which is not the case anymore, even if they play a lot. They are at home, so we can find ways to produce content, so find new revenue streams, new sponsors, because they have a bit of time at home, which was not the case before. So honestly, I would say that I really miss the big events with the crowd and the atmosphere of the biggest competition in the world. But we are very lucky in what we do because the COVID is not affecting us that much. The players are still playing. They are still competing in big events. We are still signing very good contracts for the players. We are finding brands, partnerships, individual sponsors to promote brands online. So yeah, it doesn't affect us that much, to be transparent. And I'm very, very lucky about that.
Yeah, it's good to hear that it hasn't impacted everybody in a negative way, that's for sure. What kind of brands want to work with esport players?
I think that right now we are mainly working with endemic brands that are already involved in esports because it makes sense. Peripheral company, you provide mouse, keyboard for players, then you want the best player in the world to promote it, right?
For sure.
So usually they sponsor the teams directly, but then we have individual deals with the same sponsors and so on. It's a bit of a challenge because in esports, the teams are still a bit, let's say, struggling to find different revenue streams. So sponsorship is by far the biggest revenue stream for the teams. So you cannot find a competitor sponsor like you have in football, for example. The team can be sponsored by Nike and the player can be sponsored by Adidas. It works, right? In esports, that's not the case yet, because if you do that, you jeopardize a lot of opportunities for the teams. But yeah, for the players, we find endemic brands, endemic to esports that want to promote their product, their platform. It makes sense to use the best player in the world for that because they are the absolute reference ambassador. And then right now, the main, let's say, challenge, the next focus for the esports players is to find deals, ambassadorship with non-endemic brands like FMCG, brands that really want to tap into the millennials audience.
Yeah.
And those millennials are watching gaming, are watching influencers, and are watching esport. And the players we represent are the very best gamers in the world. So there is a sense for the brands to promote them, just like they are doing in other marketing strategies. I think we all know that the influencer marketing strategy is probably one of the most efficient nowadays because you have a strong engagement with the community of those influencers, which is the same for the players. And I think in the years to come, we will see more and more brands engaging with pro players because, like I said, they are the best gamers in the world. They are the absolute reference. So, for example, for any brand that has a strong positioning on performance, like being the fastest car, being the best product on their specific industry, it makes a lot of sense to have a player promoting it. Because if you have the best player in the world that can say This is, I am the best of the game and I'm using the best product. It makes a lot of sense. Like you can see a lot of campaigns with the best footballers or athletes in that regard.
Yeah.
But the main challenge that the brands have, let's say that the brands had before, is that it's really hard to work with a pro player for all the reasons we have discussed before, including the fact that they are playing a lot, they are training a lot, and they were traveling a lot, which means that they don't really have the time to activate a brand usually. And they don't, or they didn't really have the expertise in marketing. Like if you ask pro player to promote a brand and be proactive, they don't know how to do that. And this is why the agencies like Prodigy Agency are really important, because this is part of our expertise. This is what we have been doing in sport. This is what we are doing on a daily basis. And nowadays, the difference is that the players are getting to be represented by agencies like Prodigy. And so we can discuss with the brand and we can say, we know before you tried to work with players and it was a nightmare because they were not able to deliver, right? Mm-hmm. But now we do everything for the players. We manage their social media, we manage their content, we can do photos, videos with the players, we are going to the events with them. So we can basically execute the full campaign for brand, for companies, for platform, and we can make sure that it will be successful using the image of the player, which is a game changer for the brands right now. And this is what we do on a daily basis with Prodigy. We are educating the brands, telling them that now they can use the player, they can use the image, the audience, the leverage of the pro players because they are represented, and the brands are sure that the campaigns will be successful, or let's put it another way, everything will be done to be successful at least. And then we can generate marketing ROI, we can track everything because we are doing it for the player. And the player, our goal is that the player is focusing on playing and winning, and all the rest we can do it for him. And we just ask him to do what we need for the campaigns, basically. So if he needs to go to an event, we are going to the events with him. If he needs to post on social media, we are posting for him under his approval. So we are sure that it's successful. And that will be the very big game changer for the brands. Now they will know that they can work with esports players, just like they are doing with athletes in other sports. And it was not the case, I would say, even 2 years ago. It was not the case at all.
Yeah. We've touched on a little bit of, like, let's say, industry jargon, because you've used words like endemic, and for some people that might not be obvious. So with endemic brands, they're the brands that are already somehow involved in esports. So like you mentioned, people maybe who are making equipment or keyboards or mice, or video game producers, anybody who's already involved in the industry, and that's obvious. Like that's a clear connection. What kind of non-endemic brands are now looking to partner up with esport players? Is that happening a lot?
Right now, the tendency, what we can see is that the non-endemic brands are starting, or have started since a few years, to sponsor the biggest teams in the world right now. You have BMW, you have some big FMCG, you have Coca-Cola in Asia, you have Gillette, P&G in South America starting to sponsor teams, right, with really big sponsorship, or even events. Like really the biggest events in the world, they sponsor, they do some activation. When you do that, the main strategy for those non-endemic brands is to create awareness about their company, their brand, their products to the esports whole ecosystem and the audience. It's really to create awareness. But now, in my opinion, those companies, they will start to look for marketing ROI, which makes sense, right? And then to have more marketing ROI, you need to be more engaged with the community. You need to have more engagement. And this is where the players are the best ambassador for that. Because when you work with the player directly, then you can engage on his streaming channel, you can engage on his YouTube, on his social media, you can talk directly with his fan and the esports fans and audience. And all those brands will start to switch. They will stay with the events and the teams, but they will want more and more activations with the esports players. Those esports players are becoming influencers nowadays, despite the fact that they don't have the time to be influencers, like the normal full-time influencers, content creators. This is their daily job. So it's easy to find brands for influencers because this is what they do on a daily basis. The pro players, They are players. They are just influencers because they are the best, they are known, and they have a voice, right? They have millions of followers.
Yeah, they're like accidental influencers.
Exactly.
It's something that happens to them anyway. Yeah. What does we're kind of running out of time, but I have like 3 more questions. So though I could probably think of another 20 questions to ask you easily. What does a regular activation look like with a brand? Like, where could we see these activations?
Right now, the most engaging with the community, what is working the best, what the brands are all looking for is stream activations.
So activations during the stream.
Yeah, during the stream, because this is when you have the most engagement between the player streaming and his community, can talk directly with them, they can ask questions. It's really authentic, right? Even if it's a sponsor, it's a brand. Usually, I said usually, but the players, they don't really promote products or companies that they don't like, right? At least there is a minimum interest in that. So they discuss about the products, they activate the products, they go on the platform, they show the products, they do an unboxing and this kind of thing. And it's really engaging because the fans are watching the stream and they see it live. It's not something pre-recorded. It's not something too professional. It's just the player being authentic and doing it. And this is the best way to activate a brand nowadays. And then after that, it's mainly digital presence, including YouTube videos. That can be a dedicated video or some integration. And then you have the use of all the social media, obviously, Twitter, Instagram story. Some players are starting to use TikTok, but it's really new for players and they don't really love to do it, except a few players. But that's the global package right now. Obviously, without COVID, you have a lot of events, activations during the events, during the esports events, during big gaming festival that you can have the player playing on stage with the public or against the public, this kind of thing, which is not possible nowadays, but it's something really big usually, and the brands are really looking for that. But yeah, with the current situation, the stream activations are by far what the brand are looking the most, and then using the image of the player. Like for example, this year before the COVID, we had a really big event in Poland, and we had some of our players on really big billboards in the whole city promoting the product. Because also in Poland, esports is really, really big and famous, and it was a nice campaign.
Yeah. When you talk about stream activations, do you mean that a player is, showing a product or using a product while streaming, or is it more like in-stream advertising where there's, little advertising popping up on the screen while people are watching?
No, it's more activation from the players, like the players showing the product, using the product or the platform, because, like I said, an advertising is great, but I think that we are all consuming too many ads, right? While when your favorite streamer, your favorite player is showing you the product directly, is doing some funny content with it, activation, is explaining why it's the best product, why he's using it to be the best. It's something very, very different to an ads. So you also have ads, right? We have the logo of the brand on the stream. We have some banners, we have some description, but there is nothing better than a pure and authentic activation from the player.
Yeah, this is true. I mean, I'm more likely to, I don't know, buy a burger. I barely buy burgers, but if a player is eating the burger or if they're advertising a burger, that's 2 different things. I'm more likely to buy the burger if they're eating the burger. Okay, I've got 2 more questions for you. They're my favorite questions to end the podcast with. The first one is, what advice would you give to anybody who would like to have a career in esport?
Career as a player or working in esports?
Well, let's do both. Why can't we have both? Let's do both.
Okay, sure. So yeah, if you want to pursue a career as an esports player, then I would say that nowadays it's easier than before because you have all the tools that you could need. You just need to be dedicated. You need to be smart about how you train, how you're working. You can review the demos of the best player in the world. I think that it's really easier nowadays to try to become a pro player than it was 10 years ago or 5 years ago. You just have to play smart, trying to improve not only your pure skill on the game, but trying to understand the game you play. Because being a professional player is not only, when you play your FPS, it's not only clicking better than someone else. It's part of it, but you also need to understand how to play properly. You need to understand the strategy. You need to understand the mindset of the game. You need to read the game, the opponents, and so on. So try to work as efficiently as you can if you want to become pro. If you play a team game, try to play with some friends, try to have a team, try to do some strategies, reviews of the best team in the world, and try to grind step by step. Because if you play alone just to kill everyone on the server and not looking to improve on the team side, then it will be really hard for you to succeed. Of course, if you play an individual game like FIFA and so on, it doesn't apply. But yeah, that would be my advice for the players, and try to be as humble and kind with everyone, because this is very important for your career. Like, you don't want any bad blood with all the players if it's not needed, because it can block your career. We all know that to join a top team and so on, you need good relationship with those players. And so I think it's important to be really kind since the start of your career until you end it. That's my vision. And it helps a lot in the relationship.
Yeah.
And then when you start to be almost professional, you can always try to find a good agency or agent that could help you trying to, let's say, go on the next step of your career. It can really help. And if you want to work in esports, I would say that you're kind of lucky, because now the industry is growing a lot and you have so many opportunities to jump into esports. In esports, we are all looking for talents right now on all departments, from marketing, social media, content, talent management, finance, basically everything. All the biggest organizations, companies, agencies, they are looking for talented people. So I would say that as long as you are good in what you're doing, you are dedicated and motivated, then start to try to have some experience in esports. If you really want to work in esports, I assume that you have some appetite for the sector. So you need to learn how it's working. You need to learn the specifics and apply where you think you can be a real value to the company with your expertise, skills, and so on, and then just apply it to esports. But I would say that there are many, many opportunities in esports right now. We are all looking for talented people.
Yeah, I don't think you necessarily have to even be super into esports in order to work in esports these days. Yeah.
You need to be curious about esports. If you want to go into esports, you don't need to be an expert depending on your role, but you need to be curious about the specificities of the market, the specificities of the audience, how esports is growing, what are the challenges, and how you can bring your skill set to this growing industry.
Okay, my final question, and this is one of my favorites. What advice would you give your younger self?
Oh, it's not an easy one.
No, I know.
I don't know. Honestly, I'm being very humble there, but I will not change anything. I would say just try to be the kindest you can, because this is my mindset. I'm always trying to help people. I'm always trying to be super kind with everyone. I'm oftenly helping players freely because they need help. And I've always been doing that in my life. And the only advice I will give is basically to do that, because I think that it might not be easy on the long term, because you have some people that don't really share this good behavior, right? But on the long run, I think that you will always win being nice and kind. And I've been lucky enough to succeed so far in my career in sports, in motorsport, and in esports right now. And we are doing something really great for the players, and I'm happy about that. So that would be the advice. Just keep grinding, believe in yourself, be kind with people, and you will succeed as long as you're motivated. Don't get me wrong, I've been working really, really hard since I'm a child. I've been dedicating my life to trying to work in sports, in Formula One, then in esports, and I've been working really a lot. Maybe I will give the advice to my younger self to enjoy a little bit more life, because work is a really big part of my life. But except that, I don't regret anything.
Yeah.
So.
I think that's a really beautiful way to end the podcast. We didn't really get to talk about your experience in motorsport, which I feel is like potentially a whole different podcast. But I think that advice is really good. Be kind, be humble, work a little less.
Yeah, I mean, that's an advice, but I don't know if I will be where I am right now if I don't know, not worked that much. So I don't know.
Maybe it's time to work a little less now. Just a little less work now.
Maybe in a few years, yeah.
All right. Okay, Jérôme, thank you so much for your time today, and good luck with all your endeavors in the future.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. I really enjoyed the podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Talk to you soon. Thank you.